operation on her hip, Lord God. We ask that your favor be upon Bernadette and that Danny would get some sleep tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, John, and I did not push her over, okay, so. Item one, order of business, resolution to authorize roll call. Please forgive me.
Mr. Amity, Mr. Champagne, Mr. Hamner, Mr. Babin,
Here.
Ms. Chauvin, Mr. Trustclair, Mr. Harding, Mr. Voisin. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, Ms. Charlie. Item 1A, resolution to authorize the parish president or parish administration to execute an amendment to the master agreement for ground ambulance service between Acadian Ambulance Services Incorporated, Acadian, and Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government, TPCG, and to provide for related matters. Moved by Ms. Chauvin, second by Mr. Amade. Seeing no lights, members vote your machines. Votes 9-0, it passes. Item 1B rather, resolution authorizing the parish president to accept the FEMA and state funding for the Terrebonne Downtown Culvert Replacement Advanced Assistance Program for the Dunn Street area.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Champagne,
Second.
second by Mr. Hamner. Seeing no lights, members vote your machines. 9-0, motion passes. Item 1C, resolution authorizing the parish president to enter into a sub-guarantee agreement with GOSEP for the engineering and construction of the Geraldine Black Pump Station funded through the Pre-Disaster Mitigation Elevation Program.
Right.
Moved by Mr. Amady, second by Mr. Harding. Mr. Harding, you have a light? No, Mr. Hamner. Okay, I'm sorry.
Does this mean that we can just move forward with the engineering and get started, or is there any other steps that have to come after this?
Mr. Bergeron?
Yeah, so we are moving forward and working to meet with Gordon Dove and Tony Alford to just talk about what the next steps are to get everything moving forward with that project.
Okay. At one time, there was some talk about the levy board doing this project instead of the parish government. Are you moving that direction, or are you going to keep it within?
So I'd like to keep it with the parish just because
Okay.
of the fact of we add extra steps and extra oversight whenever we do that process. It'd be just cleaner if we do it straight through the parish. The parish is receiving the $12 million to begin with, so that's a conversation that we're working on having and just waiting to hear as soon as they're available.
Okay, and I assume that's what you're meeting with levy board and CPRAs all
Yes,
about?
sir.
Okay, thank you.
The beauty of this is the $12 million, none of it's coming out of Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government. Our match is coming from what, CDBG DR money, correct? So, beautiful. All right, seeing no other lights, members, vote your machines. Votes 9-0, passes, thank you. Item 1D, consider the introduction of an ordinance amending the parish code to establish a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit along the entire length of Christopher Drive to provide for the installation of said signs and to provide for other matters relative thereto, and call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 11, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Mr. Voisin, second by Mr. Harding. Seeing no lights, members vote your machines. Motion is 9-0, it passes. Item 1E, consider the introduction of an ordinance amending the parish code to establish a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit along the entire length of Wayne Avenue to provide for the installation of said signs and to provide for other matters relative thereto, and call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 11, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Mr. Voisin, second by Ms. Chauvin. Seeing no lights, members, vote your machines. 9-0, motion passes. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Hamner, second by Mr. Pledger. Members, vote your machines. 9-0, we are adjourned.
Notice to the public, if you wish to address the council, please complete the public wishing to address the council form located on either end of the counter and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. All comments must be addressed to the council as a whole. Addressing individual council members or staff is not allowed. Speakers should be courteous in their choice of words and actions, and comments shall be limited to the issue and cannot involve individuals or staff-related matters. All cell phones and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to call the meeting of Terrebonne Parish Budget and Finance Committee to order. We'll have an invocation and pledge by Mr. Clyde Hamner. Hit your light.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless all gathered here this evening and guide thoughts, words, and actions in the best interest of the entire Terrebonne Parish community. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Hamner. Ms. Charlie, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Champagne, Mr. Hamner, Mr. Babin, Ms. Chauvin, Mr. Trosclair, Mr. Harding, Mr. Voisin. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thanks, Ms. Charlie. Item number 1, consider the introduction of an ordinance to declare as surplus adjudicated property located at 103 Fisherman's Lane.
We good.
103 Fisherman's Lane, in which the parish has 12.25% interest, and call a public hearing on December 11th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Move Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. Carl Harding. Seeing no lights, members, vote your machines. Votes 9-0, motion passes. Item number 2, consider the introduction of an ordinance authorizing the parish president to execute a cooperative endeavor agreement between Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government and Laura Hoyt for the right of use of 107 Fisherman's Lane, Dulac, Louisiana 70353, parcel ID number 27288, and call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Move Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. Carl Harding. Seeing no lights, members, vote your machines. Votes 9-0, motion passes. Item number 3, consider the introduction of an ordinance to amend the 2024 adopted operating budget and 5-year capital outlay budget of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. Item number 1, dedicated emergency fund, $4,362,541. Item number 2, dedicated emergency fund, $2,977,647. Item number 3, dedicated emergency fund, $441,913. Item number 4, Bayou Country Sports Park, $82,957. Item number 5, 5% budget adjustments for sales tax revenue. A, general fund, $124,123. B, public safety fund, $125,123. C, road and bridge fund, $54,519. D, drainage tax fund, $97,802. E, sales tax fund, $93,035. F, Terrebonne Parish Levy and Conservation District, $54,517. 6, 5% budget adjustment for Parish Prisoners Fund, $700,200. Item, all right. Item number 7, sanitation, $81,400. Item number 8, jail plumbing project, $85,340. Item number 9, Hollywood Road Extension Bridge, $200,000. And call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 at 6:30 PM. Move Mr. Danny Babin, second. Mr. Kevin Champon. Mr. Danny Babin?
Yeah, Candace, A through F, that's all negatives, correct? They're all in parentheses,
Yes.
Yes, sir. So that is actually reducing those revenues.
reducing those revenues on all 5 of 6 of those items.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ms. Candace. Mr. Danny, you got another one?
No, I'm sorry.
Mr. Trosclair?
Yes, Candace, those negatives, does that reflect sales tax increase? Decrease? Okay.
That's my fault, guys, for not clarifying that upon reading it. Seeing no further lights, members, vote your machines. Votes 9-0, motion passes. Item number 4, consider budget hearings for proposed 2025 budget. All right, Ms. Candace, your light's on, and I may ask again, can we just go nice and slow so they can catch up?
So I'm going to try to go very nice and slow. And I put them in order of the book, except for one. I made a mistake on one.
Bless
So
your
they're in
little
order.
Bless your heart.
So we are going.
I'm sorry, can you do that again?
Okay, we're going to start with animal control, which is on page 108. I'm sorry. Yeah, 108. 108. This one we have no significant changes. However, we do have the department moving back under Public Works, which is part of the Public Works reorganization, and that is actually where the Home Rule Charter has that department located. Housing and Human Services is going to be on page 115. We have no significant changes here. Housing and Human Services, page 115.
Mr. Hardy?
Okay, could you explain the 65? I know we had projected something, and I'm looking at 66% or 75%, according to whether what you're looking at. 2023 was 324,000. We went up to 1.5, 1.6. Now we're at 350.
Yes, sir. So back a couple of months ago, and then most recently, we approved that agreement with HRI for the housing development along Tunnel Boulevard by South Louisiana Bank. So in other services and charges in 2024 for the budget and the projected, we have the expenses related to that, but we also have a revenue to offset those expenses. But we consider that that project is all expended in 2024. If it's not, which we know it won't be, it'll be carried over to 2025, but we consider it all expended in 2024. So that's why you see it's like $500,000. That's why you're seeing a large decrease, because it's comparing to including that number in the budget.
Which in turn would put us still about 20% in the decrease, or what?
And there's probably some other grant programs that are part of here that we kind of carry over as we need it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Trosclair?
That was,
All right. All right. Ms. Candace?
All right, next is going to be the parish jail. So we are going to look at our parish prisoners. So we're going to look at page 132. We have an agreement between the the parish government and the sheriff for the financial obligation for the maintenance and operation of the jail. The parish agrees to pay the $12.61 per diem for the maintenance of non-DOC prisoners, and the sheriff shall share the 50% of the DOC reimbursements. For 2025, the parish is estimated to receive $355,000 from the sheriff of Terrebonne, and we do have a general fund supplement of $3,615,000, which is an increase of $470,000. Looking at parish prisoners, let me finish with all of the jail. Parish prisoners, which is on page 133. Again, you have the $12.61 per diem. We have that personnel where we are transferring the mechanical maintenance supervisor and that maintenance technician to government buildings based on that reorganization that we're proposing. And then on the following page is the prisoners medical department. The parish currently contracts the Hadel Clinic for physician's care at $90,000 per year. With the inclusion of dental care, ambulance, and hospital care, the medical services are estimated at $165,000, with prescriptions being estimated at $120,000. We have entered into the contract to supply personnel needed to fulfill the personnel shortage. So we have some EMTs that we have done. This was approved by the council a couple of weeks ago. So we have that estimated cost of that contract, and we're eliminating those open EMTs that we hadn't been able to fill, that we are now filling through that contract. And that is for the parish prisoners. So Ms. Chauvin?
Well, I have two lights. Mr. Harding, let's get him first.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, I deal with percentages, and so we have I know we was, those EMTs, they came in, so that was a savings, and we're making a cut. So in that particular area, we're looking at 17% less budgeted. But I'm also looking at, we've made several transfers of individuals, and basically those individuals has been going to the government building. So those two salaries, the total $81,800. So when we transferring these folk to the government building, I think we've moved several people around.
So we have moved several people, but just to clear it up, because I think I know where you're going here, we are still going to back charge the salaries for these individuals, the maintenance guys, to where they are performing their work. So we're going to implement a work order system. We're going to be able to determine the number of hours that they have spent at the jail or at juvenile detention or at OEP, and be able to back charge. So part of this budget does have a portion of their salaries being back charged still to that department.
Yeah, and I think in government, I've actually worked with other agencies and things that are like that. That, let's say, for instance, we're being more efficient. I can understand that part. You know what I mean? Of course, that's $81,000 for two personnel. And if we got a welder that's in one section, you know, man, that's a welding division for Terrebonne Parish. That welder, we don't have to go out and put RFPs and stuff like that when we have guys or someone's in there. That's the intent that we're actually trying to do to save money. Because I do believe that we can be more efficient with working with people that's within the government, because we're making a lot of transfers, and it's hard for me to understand that. And it's difficult to sell other people, like Mr. Hamlin had said, he had heard this and he heard that. So we're trying to get the information where we can actually let the people know for sure what my position is that we're providing a service for the personnel of the people in Terrebonne Parish, but we want to maintain the people that's actually been with us. And that's my concern. We want to provide a service. We want to maintain our personnel. If that's what we're doing, I'm fine with all of this and to be more efficient. So just to bring a point up and make my point. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Chauvin?
Okay, so I'm looking at the general fund supplement and increasing the 470.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. There's several different reasons that come into play here, and part of the major portion of The reason we have to supplement general fund with an increase is the increase in the cost of the jail. Not only just the insurance of it, but the personnel that are part of it, the per diem that we pay the sheriff's office, for the personnel to run the jail, the supplies, the food, all of it is increasing significantly. So the only place that we can pay, or the only funding source that we can use to pay for the parish prisoners, is general fund. So that's the only place we can take it from.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Chauvin. Mr. Trustclair.
Yes, quick question, Candace. On the, Councilman Harding, brought up about the transfers of a lot of these maintenance people into the government buildings. And, like these two transferees, he mentioned 81,000 or whatever their salaries would have been. So they go basically work for a fee-for-service type position now through the buildings, the building.
Yes, sir.
So let's say, not the jails were carrying the 80,000 in their budget, 85,000, whatever it was in their budget. But let's say we only utilize them for 40,000. So that extra 40,000 technically rolls into the fund balance for the out of the building and maintenance fund. So, I mean, it's a play on numbers, but at the end of the day, if the jail don't use the full 80,000 and we can't bill them out nowhere else, then that extra whatever falls onto the building maintenance fund.
So it would fall into general fund, but what the hope or the efficiency side of this that we're trying to get out of it is they may not have 40 hours at the jail, but they may have some type of expertise that we can use them at juvenile detention or at OEP or even at government towers, and we can still charge those departments. So it's hopefully most of their time is charged to other departments and makes up for it. And if not, I think the efficiency of the whole department will be looked at that point in time. But right now, they're at the jail and they're only at the jail and they're nowhere else. So they may be having free time, or they may have an expertise that we need somewhere else. And if we put them all in one department, it'll be easier to utilize them that way.
Okay, and I understand how that would be utilized. But to me, for efficiency purposes, if we left these guys here, and I'm just kind of playing numbers, if we left these guys here and still use them on a service for fee somewhere else.
So the way that governmental accounting works, we can't do it that way.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Trostclair. Mr. Champagne.
Yeah, so to go along with the same ideas, so for me to understand this, you're taking people and creating like a pool of employees to go out and so say if you had one person at this building doing all the maintenance, now you may have this pool and you get to send maybe 2 or 3 people to fix something, and then you get to charge back, right? And so y'all see that there may be cost savings by doing this way, and are you cutting any empty positions? Maintenance positions in some buildings or wherever?
There might have been one part-time maintenance position that was vacant that we didn't move over.
So
but
my question kind of goes back to what Steve's saying. You're still going to have people not doing things, and you're going to charge to the general fund.
It'll be to general fund if they can't charge their time out for the work that they're doing.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess I was just trying to figure out where the savings is.
So I think the savings is it's going to take a while for us to see it, but I think you're going to see it once we utilize the employees that we have in place, how they can be utilized and efficiently.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Champagne. Mr. Voisin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These employees, were they full-time employees?
Yes, sir.
All of them?
Yes, sir. There may have been one part-time that we moved as well. There was 2 or 3 part-time from another department that maybe was vacant and we didn't move it, or one was full and we did move it.
Whatever they were before, y'all foresee them still maintaining the same hours or more possibly? Where it's not gonna cut into their monthly or annual?
Correct. The hope is it would not, if they were making overtime to, be at the auditorium, it'll still be the same people that'll do those kind of functions.
Yeah, I mean,
If
we all
needed.
hope. I'm just saying, we looking to maintain them. If they were making 40 hours a week, they still gonna make.
They will
40
definitely
hours.
make 40 hours a week. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely. If they're a full-time employee, they will make 40 hour, at least 40 hours a week.
You understand my question? I don't want to be vague. I guess maybe I am. Whatever hours they were making, and
So we can only
previous
guarantee the
job.
40 hours because that's what a full-time position is. If there's overtime and stuff like that, you know, it would be however it is efficient and cost-effective for us to do that.
So, were these employees just told that this is what was happening, or did they have a conversation on their own behalf prior to this occurring?
I will let administration answer that question.
Mr. Bergeron? Oh,
Yeah, so we've been working through this year as we work through issues with buildings where it's definitely been a lack of consistency. So some people call for maintenance on their building, some people call maintenance for building issues. And so as we're looking at that, you know, it's really making sure that if we need a plumber, we have a plumber. We don't have somebody that's skilled for one thing working on something else when historically they've worked for just this building or just in that area. So adding the work order system to really track what issues are coming in, priorities that we're responding to the building the tenants, I guess you could say, our own tenants in some cases, and external tenants in other cases, and just to really make sure that we're just putting our best foot forward when it comes to building maintenance. No different than how we do IT and just some of the other intergovernmental transactions, but just working with Public Works and just looking at different ways that we had some issues in animal control, and it was the person that ran that building dealing with the HVAC, not the building people. So just trying to make sure we got the knowledge in the right place to make some of these decisions and not put it on some people that maybe are dealing with buildings that don't have the experience. And so we just seeing that this is going to be just a more efficient way to run it at the end of the day. And, you know, we should have, we should have the issues that we dealt with. And as we transition out of hurricane repairs, whereas we have kind of more buildings to maintain, you know, we got Chris's office is moving back into the first, second floor as we navigate through that journey also. We just think overall it's going to be a more efficiently run situation.
So there was discussions with the employees prior to them knowing this was going to happen, or?
I mean, I know I
Just
had
take
conversations with director and imagine that conversation made it down to that level, but part of this is back to the having conversations, what's going well,
Well, I'm
what's
just
not
not
going well.
understanding how you know all this without having a discussion with the employee. In some cases, I'm assuming this could be a demotion. This could be them making less money than they'd been making with the parish.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, this is all for the conversations when we
That's
have.
just the
that we
question.
have.
I thought it'd be pretty simple. Yeah, they gonna make at least what they was making in their previous job.
Yeah, we understand we clarified that.
40 hours, but maybe they were making more in some cases. Maybe, right? I don't know.
Was that something,
The only overtime that is ever made would be for maintenance individuals that worked at auditoriums and gyms and the civic center, and that really all depends on what events are there and when. It's never a guarantee. It's however often it is.
Yeah, I'm
you
just
know,
looking out
rented
for the
out.
employees. I understand, sometimes
there
we
is-
can get overwhelmed in business and government, and we can make decisions not considering the individuals.
There's
That's
also-
all I'm doing.
There's also the thought of, a cost savings, and we all know we just did a very 5% decrease in all the sales tax revenue in the budget amendment. So there may be a cost savings. Is it going to be a significant impact on the employees taken home? I don't think so.
Okay.
I
And look,
don't.
that's all I'm asking.
Right.
If that had been visited, and what was the answer to that question? And obviously, you answered my question. It was to save money, and that's why the move was made. Thank you.
And I may add to that if you don't mind too. So part of the conversation is the one-on-ones we're having, what's going well, what's not going well, and how the employees want to fix it. So as it works down to Noah, to David, to down below that, then things come back to us and say, hey, what are some ways that we can be more efficient? What are ways that we can do things a little differently, a little bit better? And so as we're getting that feedback, and we're working down still through to every person, and we hope to have every person go through this process. I would hope by the 6-month period next year, right? And we want it to happen as fast as possible, but it is about those job descriptions, measurable tasks, and all those things that say, hey, how does the team think we should run some things differently or better? And we think this, and then we had some people that were out with buildings that are coming back. So a few things kind of coming together at one time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Voisin. Mr. Harding?
Yeah, once upon a time, I often went to the people that had to do the work because I was their supervisor, and they were the ones to actually do the work. And sometimes that's where you can get the best work when those people are out there that's doing it. But I understand the concept about this, but with this whole budget thing, I think our first page in this budget book, it states, and it has a couple of words in there. And those words are like shortfall, we're losing revenue in certain areas. It had to be more efficient in reference to what we're doing. So not to put the cart before the horse, but then actually put the reins in the hands of the person that's actually driving this particular wagon that we actually have here. We're looking at, we're making up money, point blank. We're making up money because we're losing on our mineral royalties. We're losing on our sales tax revenue. We're looking at even with the video poker and all these other collections. An honest day's work for an honest day's pay. That's my thing. But we have to be more efficient. In that efficiency, and we're making these changes, all I want to do up here is actually make sure we provide services for the people. We actually take care of our employees. It's unfortunate. If it has to be said, I would like to be said, and we have the understanding up here that we're actually doing this and everybody got to row the boat. So everybody has to pitch in, and we constantly trying to pull it out, and I would like for this to be more simpler than what we've been doing it and we have been doing it in such a short time. And actually go into the future, we can actually lend ourselves an opportunity through our Budget and Finance Committee to be more interacting with the administration, because sometimes we get the changes, we're not aware of those changes, and we want to actually have some input on it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Back to you, Ms. Bass. Are you good?
I'm good, yes.
Ms. Lerat?
I'd just like to say that, you know, the amount of employees has not decreased, all right? The amount of work increases every time we defer maintenance. So there's no shortage of work. It's the same amount of employees. The idea with this is to utilize our people to work more, all right? Because we have identified this by talking with government buildings, by talking with public works, that we have a lot of maintenance in government buildings that needs to be done, not enough manpower. That's the idea behind this move, so it should not in any way decrease the amount of work that's being done. It should increase. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lerat. I just have a thing I'd like to add from the chair, and it's kind of going back to something Mr. Lerat kind of jogged my memory on. I think we had budgeted $600,000 towards pump maintenance or something to that effect. And in that, I had the opportunity to learn or to meet some of our folks out there during the storm that were actually the guys who took care of the pumps, what have you. And I flat out asked the guy, I said, hey, man, so you maintain these pumps? And he said, no, most of it's contracted out. Okay. So with that being said, and he's been with the parish for, I don't know, 20 plus years. And I'm thinking he's probably one of those guys that we could utilize in that 600,000, you know, being able to cross train and have him, you know, take some of that contract work and let him do that kind of stuff. Cause I'm sure he probably knows the pumps better than our contractors that are coming in using those pumps. But I just thought I'd add that in a spirit of, you know, using our folks to, if they can do it, if they want to do it, that's efficient to me. Mr. Harding.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what he's saying, it's just the fact that there's an incentive. You know what I mean? If a guy has been working with a shovel in his hand, and he can be motivated to go to a class for small pump operation, fluids in motion, and things like that. It's having a smarter workforce. The people that's working for us, we have to invest in them to teach them. Then we don't have to spend a lot of money out to these private industries that we have to come in and we got to engineer for this, that, and the other. We got an engineering department. We got people that can actually work on this, that, and the other. So that's how we keep our people employed. That's how we increase our employing habits, and then we can create better benefits for the people itself. We have to grow within ourselves and quit going outside when we can teach our people and educate them where they can be motivated to make more money and actually be smarter, have a smarter working force.
Thanks, Mr. Harding. Mr. Bergeron?
Yeah, I just want to add, I mean, historically, we've seen, you know, in the year here, that it costs more for us to have a contract to do it than do it internally. And we're really relying on our teams to tell us when we need to do it externally versus internally. And so any opportunity we can that we have, if you look at the difference between vegetation and solid waste versus vegetation and drainage, everything from a solid waste perspective, vegetation is done internally. Everything from a vegetation perspective and drainage is done externally. We're getting those two guys together to say, hey, is there ways for us to do this more efficiently, better than we are doing it now? But the fact that we have it with one inside, one outside. And so every opportunity we can to do it internally, we will. It's more cost effective that way, and just go to contract when we have to. So just want to share that.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Candace, back to you.
All right, we will go to our public safety fund. So we're going to look on page 135 for the revenues. So we have an ad valorem tax that is proposed in 2025 in the amount of 4.7 million. It is from the levy of 6.2 mils for city alimony, 5.08 mils for city fire, and 5.08 for city police. We also have the rededication of that 1 mil from the health unit millage to provide for additional funds for improving, for operating and maintaining public safety personnel at school sites. So this revenue, the 2025 time, is the first time we will see this revenue. It is estimated to bring in a little over 1 million. We also have the 1965 parish levied a 1% parish-wide sales tax that is equally divided between the police jury, City of Houma, and the school board. The 1/3 City of Houma portion has been dedicated through the budget for the use by the Public Safety Fund, and it is projected to generate $9.2 million. We have insurance occupational licenses in the City of Houma that are proposed to collect $945,000. Occupational licenses, 50% of what's collected in the city is $192,800. Court fines are proposed at $120,000, and general fund supplement is $2.25 million. If you flip over to page 137, this is for our Houma Police Department. The personnel has a 2% adjusted across the board that is mandated by state law. We have the increase in retirement with the rate being 35.6% for 2024, which rolls into 2025. And we are proposing capital of $772,000, which will allow us to buy 10 police units. Moving on to...
Mr. Trusclair?
Yes, thank you, Candace. Chairman, Candace, okay, looking at the big book on page 89, the first line item is salaries and wages, and the projected for 2024 is 5.1 million, and the new projection is 5 million, just a little over 5 million, about $140,000 difference. Did we lose any employees to have that difference in wages and salaries?
We did not. And if you give me a few seconds, I'm going to pull that up to look at exactly what you're looking at.
About 140,000 less.
So can you tell me again what you're looking at?
Line item 1, salaries and wages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on the 2024 projected year end, 5.153579. And then the proposed budget is 5.011388.
So we have not lost any employees. What I'm thinking is happening is the ranking of the employees has become different. So the total cost of those salaries would be less because it's not the officers coming in at the lower rate is where we're at. We've moved a lot of people up this year and we're making up for it next year. So I think it's the ranking. But I can look more
If
deep.
we move people up, then that increase should have been an increase, not a decrease.
But the way that it falls into between the years and stuff, it might have a reason for that decrease. But let me look into detail and get back with you on
Okay,
that.
and then moving on down to the school resource officers.
Yes, sir.
It's $1 million. Didn't we get some grant money for some type of grant money for that million?
So that $1 million is that millage that was rededicated from the health
Rededicated
unit.
mill, that's what it was.
And what we will do with that is it is going to be divided evenly, not evenly, based on population per school. And it will go to all of the schools in the parish that are kindergarten to 12th. And they can do with it how they see fit, if it's a school resource officer, if it's some type of capital improvements to the security. So there will be a CEA that is done amongst everybody to put that back. But it'll help with paying some of our officers that are part of the school resource officer program.
Okay. And then on the total personal services, we had about $632,000 decrease from last year.
Yes, sir. And that is because of that reimbursement. So you see, if you look at the 400, the school resource officer line, that 400,000 was the
Right.
only thing we had reimbursed.
Correct.
So the increase in that is what's causing that. I'll get you a better answer about the salaries and wages though.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Trosclair. Ms. Chauvin?
Just looking at the budget highlights, when you talked about the court fines that are proposed at 120, I mean, is that just that you get a percentage?
There's a percentage that goes to public safety for City of Houma.
Okay.
So the other portions go to the DA's office, city court, clerk of court, all
Okay.
kind of people get
You know what the
percentages.
percentage is?
I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Chauvin. Mr. Champagne?
Yeah, I was just wondering if, so the 10 police units, those are replacing old vehicles?
Yes, sir.
We're not getting 10 new officers on
No,
the street?
sir.
right, just
I know
checking.
we would love to, but
Yep,
no,
all
sir.
Thanks, Mr. Champagne. Mr. Harding?
Oh, yeah, not to stop your inquiry from Mr. Trusclair, I do believe that might be a factor because I think the police chief, he actually is on a set salary. The civil service systems, they work according to seniority and they add their years together. I think recently we just had some people that had 30 years and better like that. So that might be a factor about that. So I'm interested with Mr. Trusclair is talking about too, but that's still might be a factor. I did talk to the police chief and I found out what those police units and the problem that he was having with those police units. Oh, he's there.
Chief Terrio,
Yeah,
how you doing?
the problems we've been having those
It's,
units.
he's on. You
Yeah.
can go ahead and share if you like.
Yes, so we had some 30-plus year veterans retire, which then replaces them with probably a 20, 25-year veteran. So whenever you do that, everything comes down, your overall comes down. You're replacing your sergeants with a 20-year probably versus a 25-year veteran. Same thing with your lieutenants, and all that kind of trickles down.
From the chair now, in that formulation and doing that, with, the senior guys retiring and the junior guys kind of moving into their spot, wouldn't it be a wash because there is a state mandate that we give a 2% anyways, right? Am I correct in that? So that would kind of just push that number right back up.
It's the 2%.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that for the,
For the higher ones too.
Right, so that's my point. If we're doing that, if it's coming down without factoring that part in, then when you factor that part in, the 2% increase, well, that's gonna boost that number back up, right?
Depends on if you're promoting a 20-year sergeant or a 26,
Yeah.
just for example, a 20-year sergeant versus a 24-year sergeant to a lieutenant. So
Gotcha.
that depends on where they're at on their time and service for the department, on what their pay would be going into that new ranking position.
Gotcha. Mr. Babin, I don't know if you have anything for the chief or?
No, I don't have anything for the chief.
Okay.
Just the next item underneath, the one we talked about before, general fund supplement, $2.25 million, a decrease of $1 million. Nobody brought that up. Okay. So we have a savings there out of general fund of $1 million. Thank you.
Mr. Trosclair?
Yes, and Councilman Pledger kind of hit on it. The 2% adjustment, that's in this number here too, huh?
Yes, sir.
So actually, 140,000 could be more than that. If you add that 2%.
I don't know that the 2% is in here. Because it's within that 5% variance, so I don't know that we budget for it. We usually don't if we do something parish-wide. So let me get you some real numbers and get you some real talk of how we got to that and why it is a decrease.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Trosclair. All right, Ms. Candace, back to you.
All right, so we will move to the fire department, which is on page 143. We have their retirement contribution, which stays the same for this year at 33.25%. Them as well have a 2% COLA adjustment across the board, which is mandated by state law. And then we are proposing capital purchases of $192,000 for some bunker gear, a replacement of the AC at the East Park Station, some hoses and nozzles, as well as the foam adductors that they are needing. So then we will go to coastal restoration, coastal zone management on page 155. We have the coastal impact fee collections, which is $78,500, which is an increase of $2,000, and general fund supplement is $113,000, which is a decrease of $20,000. Okay, moving on, and this is where I messed up the pages, so we're gonna have to skip a couple of pages. We're gonna go to page 201 for our housing and human services, our grants. So we're on page 201. So the highlights for our grant funds, CDBG Recovery Fund 241. We have both that and we have capital projects. This CDBG money is from Gustav Ike. So we haven't gotten anything. By the time we presented this, we hadn't gotten anything approved for the IDA CDBG. So you'll start seeing those budgets come through in 2025 and it'll be recognized as part of these special revenue grant funds. CDBG entitlement supplements the homeless shelter by $120,000. And the general fund supplements the homeless shelter, $18,400. Home investment partnership, general fund supplements $50,874. Head Start program receives a $400,000 supplement. Rural transportation is $34,229, and Section 8 is $40,000.
Couple questions, Ms. Candace? Are you finished there?
Yep.
Ms. Kim?
Okay. So I'm looking at the Head Start. Exactly why are we decreasing education for?
So
young
we're not
kids?
decreasing,
Okay.
but we had built up a match that we could not utilize any other way but putting it back into general fund. So it's the general fund has to do a 25% match only up to the amount that we actually expend. So we had some things that had kind of built up in there and we went ahead and transferred it back to general fund because we couldn't use it for anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hardy?
So it serves as a, that was my question too, it's just like a pop-off valve. Once you actually get so much funds and then have to kick the excess out.
Yes, sir.
Back over. Again, we're looking at an area that has a 73% a decrease. We're looking at this actually we went from $5 million all the way, we're going down to this $2,779,671.
So 90% of that decrease is because of how governmental accounting requires us to recognize the grants. And a lot of these grants, especially the other services and charges, is that 44 million. That is a lot of our elevation grants. It's some of our other construction grants that we have, and we are required to project that we spent it this year. And if we don't spend it, we'll carry it over, and you'll see it in our budget next year. But so what you see in 2025 proposed is any new grants that we are expecting to receive for 2025. The ones we have in 2024 will either be expended or they'll continue into 2025, but we have to recognize it in our projected budget.
Okay, so I majored in waking up and going to sleep. So we're looking at how does this 73.69 actually come down and show that it is a benefit without actually having the assumption that that we're losing something.
So I would have to go through and show you which ones we would consider as carryovers. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, as long as we do it, and I can understand that. I'm just actually trying to see how we're doing less and stuff like that. Because I'm under the assumption, and then people are constantly inquiring. So I'm trying to get information to them, and as much as we don't see each other. I'll call you sometime, but don't have enough knowledge of it. And I want a better understanding of it because we're dealing with other folks' money. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Harding. Mr. Trustclair.
On the rural transit fund, why would we have an increase of 22,000 from 12 to 34,000? Is that something that was mandated by some grant money, or?
It's probably a match. We're probably getting some more funding and we have to match more money. If I remember correctly, the rural transportation as well as the transit departments had a lot of COVID money in the past, and we hadn't had to supplement as much with general fund. I'm assuming that probably has to do with the increase, is we're not getting that COVID money that we had previously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Trustclair. Ms. Candace?
Okay. We will go back to the health unit fund, which is going to be on page 173. This is the 1.66 mil, but as we already discussed, we rededicated 1 mil of this to school safety. So the 0.66 mil remaining for health unit is estimated to generate $719,481 in revenue for 2025. Reimburse various expenditures incurred by the state, and for 2025, that's projected to be $421,200. We will go to the elderly, the Terrebonne Elderly and Disabled Tax Fund on page 176. We have a 7.5 ad valorem tax approved by the voters in 2013. It is estimated to generate $8.2 million in 2025. We have the cooperative endeavor agreement with Council on Aging to provide services to the elderly and disabled, and we are estimating that to be $8.5 million in 2025. Also in 2025, we have budgeted $150,000 each for the 3 elderly programs in Mechanicville, Gibson, and Gray Community.
Mr. Harding?
Originally, Mechanicville was with Gulf Coast, right? Is it still?
All 3 of them are.
All 3 of them are, but the funding is coming from Council on Aging.
No, sir. The funding is coming from the elderly and disabled millage that Terrebonne Parish consolidated government levies and collects.
Okay, because I was under the assumption, like last year, we actually tried to go to council.
We do, but based on that cooperative cooperative endeavor agreement, we do have to go and ask their approval to use the millage for something other than what they're doing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Point well taken for the public. Thank you.
Mr. Champagne?
Yeah, I was wondering, what was the big decrease in the health and welfare expenditures from 10 million projected or 9.8 million projected to 8.9?
So the way that we do it, Mr. Champagne, is we project for 2025 what we expect the expenses to be. If you remember, several months ago, we presented to the Council on Aging's actual budget, and you approved it. And based on that, we had to increase what we had already proposed. So going from that 9.8 to that 10.8 was the reason for that. So we're trying to get it as close to what we think it's going to be based on this year of the 8.5, but we would have to adjust it next year if they submit a budget that's approved that
different.
requires a larger supplement. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Champagne. Ms. Chauvin?
Okay, so I'm looking at a little flyer that we have with the Gulf Coast Social Services, and it's 150,000 each. So that comes from the monies that would go to Council on Aging.
Oh, ma'am. It comes from the elderly and disabled millage that Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government levies and collects, and we supplement Council on Aging and their programs as well as other elderly programs, which is part of these three.
Okay, so, and you only have them in those few places.
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Those are the only three that we've been approached to give them, to have these programs.
What do
at.
they do different from Council on Aging?
I don't know.
Can we find out?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Mr., you good, Ms. Chauvin?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Trosclair?
Yes, I just want to give Ms. Chauvin a little insight. Several years ago, the Council on Aging refused to go into the Mechanicville area. So I think it was Councilman Navy or maybe Ms. Williams.
Maybe so. I don't remember.
One
when
of
it
those
started.
two, they pushed to have this activity started for the seniors in that area. And then I think Councilman Harding started the Gibson thing in Gray a couple years ago. So that's how those got there. It originally started, the misconception is it's a Council on Aging tax, and that's why Ms. Maulding refers to the elderly tax. It's so that's the reason these three programs actually got started.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I will tell you, Ms. Chauvin, that Gulf Coast submits their invoices to me every month. So we verify that it is elderly individuals that are getting provided. So I know what they do. I don't know what Council on Aging does specifically at their centers, but the Gulf Coast, for these three areas, they do transport the elderly to and from the place. They feed them lunch, and they always have some type of game, arts and crafts. If it's Thanksgiving, they'll probably have a huge Thanksgiving feast and stuff like that. So that's what they're providing for the elderly.
Okay. My only thing was just to understand what the different services were in those two. Not that they don't deserve it, just what's the differences between the two.
Yeah.
But he helped me to see that. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Chauvin. Mr. Basil?
Yeah, I just want to add to it, doing the town halls and traveling around, along with going to different elderly functions. Definitely some questions about, some areas do things, some areas don't do things. So I've actually set up a meeting with the new director of Council on Aging to have a conversation and just seeing what we could do to better, differently. Same thing you've kind of heard. If anybody's interested in participating in that conversation, I could definitely make you a part of that conversation. But, I definitely want to see what they have ideas for, what we're doing, what we're supplementing, and how we could do all that together. So that is part of my plan.
Miss Jane Walker.
Yeah.
She was
She was the
within.
associate director.
Mr. Basil, Mr. Harding?
Yeah, and Miss Jane, she's real nice. And really, we have these little flyers here, and they show something and wasn't actually conducive to. I'm glad Steve spoke up. I guess I can say it that way. I'm glad Steve spoke up. It wasn't culturally diverse. in particular areas, and oftentimes these folk would actually have to leave out their neighborhood to actually come in when there's nothing being built in that neighborhood. And when you're dealing with the elderly, having to travel 5 and 6 miles or whatever distance it was to actually go. So Mr. Navy started out with it, and actually that was a demand in the Gray and the Gibson area, and the numbers had to be up. But tomorrow, from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, all three of those these groups from the Mechanicville, Gibson, and the Gray community, they're going to be at the West Homer Gym, and they're going to be having tea. So a lot of these ladies, they didn't have any tea, and they had little hats and stuff like that. So it's a different culture for them, other than perhaps other ways of actually being exposed to something. So it's actually more point specific in reference to what particular the dynamics of this particular program.
Thanks, Mr. Harding. And I had an opportunity to go to all these programs and kind of visit them myself, from the one at the Council on Aging and the various ones in the communities that are mentioned here. And there are a slight subtle difference as well. Some of the one that's actually held at, I think it's Shady, I forget the name of it, but Shady Oaks, a lot of those folks live there too as well. So it's just a matter of them going down to the community center, I guess you can say, there on the property, and they can visit with the other seniors that are there, versus the ones that are held in the Mechanicville, Gibson area. They are Gray. They are more where the seniors have to either go to a centralized location. It's not at home for them. But all those programs kind of do the same thing, just like everybody else has mentioned. All right, Ms. Candace, back to you.
All right, we will move on to Terrebonne Arc, which is on page 179. So there is a 5.21 mil ad valorem tax that was renewed by the voters in 2013, and it is going to generate an estimated 5.7 million in 2025. We do have a cooperative endeavor agreement with Terrebonne Arc to provide services, and we're estimating that to be $5.1 million. And we do have the independent budget that is adopted by Terrebonne Arc as well. Next, we have Terrebonne Levee and Conservation District. We have on page 194, this is our coastal restore bonds. So there is no significant changes here. And then on the next page, 196, this is where we have in 2001, the parish voters approved a 1/4-cent sales tax dedicated to the construction and maintaining the Marganza to the Gulf. And the 2025 collections are estimated to be $7,026,008. The levy district drawdown is $3.2 million for Marganza to the Gulf projects in accordance with the intergovernmental agreement. And out of this fund, we do pay off the Marganza to the Gulf bonds. So we're transferring in 2025 about $3.7 million in order to pay those bonds, the principal and interest for next year.
Ms. Chauvin?
So I'm just kind of wondering, since we're looking at this budget, when they, I guess when you put this together, is there anything in here that's going to pay for the roads that's damaged by the big trucks going back and forth? Because Bayside Drive is atrocious right now from about 5306 on down, and people are thinking that we do not want to fix it, and we're having teenagers pop tires. It's pretty much a minefield at this point. So I'm just kind of wondering, is that going to be in any of this, or are we going to put forth where this has to be done to where we can fix roads?
You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so as we've had conversations and been on some group text messages, it's definitely something we need to look at with the roads and bridges being in general fund and being an area that is very tight. Road funding, repair funding is all. We actually thought we had found some funding to do some things, and the money we're gonna have is really gonna better be for the road and bridge study. So I know David's looking at what we can do with what we have left this year to get some stuff done. But I know it's a major repair, and I know we gotta figure out a way to get that done. So we are looking at it. We're trying to come up with some other ways through capital outlay or through infrastructure funding at the federal government to see if they could help with some of those things, and that's what we're
Right.
working on.
I mean, listen, I understand the balance of needing the levies, and the levies are gonna save, pretty much Terrebonne Parish. But from 5306 on down, those people are like tired of messing up their cars, and I know that you're looking for it, and we've been back and forth. One of the phone calls that I got today was that someone had went down there and they were pulled off the job, and I had to call into David Rome, and he was like, no, that wasn't what it was. Like, I think they were trying to fix a few spots and see what they could do, but they weren't actually fixing it. So I guess in what's going on with the levy, because through the group text that we have the director saying that they don't normally pay for the road. So I'm not understanding what the whole permit is for the dump trucks, and then having a bond on it if you're not going to have to put that in the bids, that they're doing with, and maybe that's something that we need to push for. And I understand that it will cost more, but it's unfair to the people in the bayou areas to always have their roads destroyed to save Terrebonne Parish. Like we just got to come up with a better way in doing this. And so I just wanted to kind of inject that into it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Chauvin. Mr. Babin.
Yeah, to add to that, I have a very similar problem on Brady Road. But as Mr. Bergeron knows and Mr. Lederette, we met with the levy board. In this last project they did, there was a cooperative endeavor agreement. They used our flexi float to get trucks across, did some damage. The levy board is paying for it. Well, the contractor is probably paying for it. The levy board set aside money in the project to take care of Brady Road. So this is the step for the future, all right? We can't go back on the sins of the past, but from here on out, I would hope that every time we enter into an agreement, if a new levy is built, that this government is involved, that it will cost them to build more, but we can't subsidize the levy board. We have to worry about our roads, and I think in the future, these things are going to be taken care of or looked at a lot closer. So, because the Brady Road is a beautiful example. I mean, I think if I'm not correct, if I'm not far off, there's probably $500,000 to fix the road there, and it needed it bad. In fact, I sent you and Noah pictures this week of them starting on the road already. So again, this administration with the levy board is working towards that now. That doesn't help your situation,
No.
Kim. It doesn't help some that Steve has as well. That's in the past, but I think from the future from here going forward, I think we can rectify some of that or
So-
help rectify it.
So my question would be this, when it comes to maintaining the levees, because it's never going to be done, because I've had somebody say, well, when it's finished, then they're going to come in and fix the road. It's never going to be done in Chauvin or any of the other bayou areas. So I would suggest when it comes to maintaining that we definitely put that in the contract or however you're going to do that. It's not drivable, and I really feel bad for the people that are having to drive this every day, because it's not like you can skip over these potholes. It's pretty bad. My biggest fear is to have one of these teenagers get killed on that road from those potholes, because teenagers feel like they're going to live past anything, and so that's a scary part for me. And so the picture that I had sent was a young girl that had gotten her tire had popped and stuff, and so that's my worry on that part. Like, I'm going to be careful on it, but I know that the younger kids probably won't. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Chauvin. Ms. Candace, back to you.
All right, next we will look at our utilities department. So we're going to first look at the revenues on page 210. Electric, residential, and commercial sales revenue for the year 2024. I'm sorry, that should be for the year 2025, is estimated to be $14.1 million. And we have $2.325 million budgeted for residential and commercial sale of gas. The electric generation department on the next page is a personnel where we are eliminating one stationary equipment mechanic, grade 106. Page 215 is our electric distribution department. Major operating expenses, line clearing and maintenance service is $900,000, which is an increase of $50,000. Line repairs is $400,000, which is a decrease of $14,500. Substation repairs is $100,000, which is an increase of $30,000. And we are proposing capital improvements of about $9 million, which includes line maintenance of $2.5 million. Any new construction additions, $2.5 million. Plant road substation replacement is $1.5 million, and substation number 2 transformer T2 replacement is $2.5 million. The next page is gas distribution, and here we are proposing an estimated $1.8 million in capital, which includes system additions for $400,000, distribution system of $100,000, and PVC pipe replacement of $1.3 million. Utility administration, which is on page 218. Our personnel is we are transferring in one GIS manager, grade 210. And on the next page, on page 220, this is where we had the GIS mapping system. But if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we are proposing to move that over to Fund 210. So this personnel is we're transferring that one GIS manager to stay within utilities administration to be their actual manager. Sanitation fund, which is going to be on page 233. We have an 11.21 ad valorem tax, which is projected to generate about $11.9 million in 2025. The average 42,250 average units will produce approximately $5.2 million of collection fees, with an $8.50 per month user fee for garbage and the $1.50 per month for mosquito abatement. We also have the tipping fees of $42 for commercial rates, which is going to generate $3.2 million. I'm flipping over to the next page,
I have
the
a question,
solid
Miss-
waste.
From Mr. Harding.
Can we get through the expenses first?
Okay.
The solid waste expenses are major operating expenses, $5.1 million for disposal expense, which is an increase of $96,000. $3,066,000 for the transportation, which is an increase of $836,000. We have a $7.1 million solid waste contract, with an increase of $201,000, and $616,000 of mosquito abatement expenses. And we have 2 capital improvements for a total of $220,000. The landfill closures on the next page are accounted for in our construction funds. And in vegetation, we are proposing $125,000 expense for a tractor. All right, Mr. Harding.
Yeah, here's a question. Mosquitoes. I'm trying to find it in my notes. We have enough for mosquito spraying in Terrebonne Parish? Are we? Because I've heard a lot of complaints up there, and I passed a joke that I was down in one of the rural areas and mosquito hit me and knocked me out. So, are we sufficiently funded? Has there been some things we just can't cut? You follow what I'm saying? It's unfortunate. So, are we actually?
So I don't know that I have that answer, and I don't know if Clay is the right one to answer that question for tonight, but we can find out for sure for you. It is based on a contract, and it is based on the number of sprays that we are required and or asking for them to do for us, and we can get that information if we need to for you.
Yeah, it's perhaps what we were saying earlier. You know, they have herbicide classes that they actually have roadside services that you actually spray the roadsides. So you can actually trained personnel to actually spray those roadsides, and we contracting something out, that guy that might have been cutting grass and don't have any grass to cut, maybe he actually have a certificate where he can actually do as one of those mosquito sprays. I just want to make sure we're funding that, because I live in the city, and it's unfortunate. I do go to rural areas on occasion, and man, I feel for the folk that's down there. So I want to make sure that we're not passing nothing on. On page 234, if you mind in a later date, all of those things that we actually have that's under services provided for parish events paid with parish funds.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give me a total of that somehow or another, those things that we spend at 24 or perhaps 23, it would be fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Ms. Chauvin, Ms. Besron, you got something you want to just
I just
put
want
on
to
that?
add on the mosquito, on the complaints, and I'm not sure if this applies or not, but we did do some post-Francine spraying that was reimbursed by FEMA. So I don't know if it was prior to or after Francine, but we did step things up, and FEMA's going to reimburse us for that. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Ms. Chauvin?
Okay, so my question is, of the $1.50 of the mosquito abatement money that's collected per month, is that all used in that contract, or is it, because I've heard different stories, like the $1.50 does not all go to the
If
contract
anything,
for
we
mosquito
don't
abatement.
collect enough to pay that contract, but I can find out for you.
You don't collect enough,
Mhm.
or we don't give enough? Because I'm hearing two stories. And that I don't know, so I'm wondering if the $1.50 that they collect every month goes all to that contract.
Yes, ma'am.
It does.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I need to know.
Thanks, Ms. Chauvin. Now you can. Ms. Candace?
Okay, we will go on to risk management, which is on page 245. We have some premium revenue from our departments and user agencies for major self-insured plans. Workers' comp is 1.9 million, general liability 2.5, vehicle insurance 2.2, physical plant 6.8, gas and electric liability 685,000, boiler insurance $82,250, medical professional liability is 80,000. So our expenditures that are related to those self-insurance retentions, workers' comp is 350,000, vehicle insurance is 501,000, general liability 470,000, boiler 82,000, physical plant 6.95 million, gas and electric liability is 687,000. Claims for all coverages we are estimating for 2025 to be at 6.8 million. And we have an actuarial audit, which is required, that is proposed for 16,000. We have some personnel changes. We're adding one insurance technician manager, grade 211, eliminating one risk management manager, grade 211, eliminating one claims adjuster, grade 207, and eliminate one administrative coordinator, 1, grade 104. Group insurance is on page 249. We have a premium revenue proposed at 17.6 million, with major expenditures, claims being 15 million, and premiums for excess liability is 3.4 million. Human resources is on the next page, page 251. Our Human Resources Department is funded by a user charge paid by all departments and divisions which benefit from this service. The charge for 2025 is 1.5% of salaries and wages, or an estimated $690,000. We have the unemployment claims for 2024 has estimated to be 10,000, and 2025 estimated to 40,000. And we have a legal consultant for $35,000. Okay, capital improvements projects, we're going all the way to the back to page 279.
I have a question, Ms. Candace.
sir.
Going back to that, to, on 251, Human Resources, that legal consultant, that's not a part of our legal department, that's an outside entity?
It's an outside entity. They are one that helps us with some of our contracts if we have certain specific questions as to what needs to be included as far as coverage and stuff.
Thank you.
And it's just up to that 35,000. They only charge us as we use them.
Correct. All righty.
Okay, so our capital projects, you'll see for 2025, we are proposing new projects to be a little less than 3 million. So this is another one that follows the carryover rules that governmental accounting requires us to do. So we project in 2024 that all projects will have been expended through the year, but we know these are multi-year projects, so they get carried over. So all that we are showing for 2025 is any new funding that we are putting into place. So we have some chiller and air handler at the jail for about $226,000. We're proposing to upgrade some of the clerk of court security around their offices for $150,000. We have the Civic Center Valhalla Roundabout, which we have a match for our facility planning and control of about $300,000. We have government building major repairs, $300,000. The government tower repairs is $175,000, and that is to build out some offices downstairs on the first floor after the escalator had been taken out. We have the government tower HVAC system and the municipal auditorium HVAC system. Some marina repairs of $500,000. And then we have 2 matches that are required for the Valhalla Boulevard multi-use sidewalks and the Williams Avenue multi-use path, $400,000 and $175,000. We also are proposing a road study to be done in 2025, and we are adding about $250,000 into that budget.
Mr. Champagne,
Yeah, so I guess what my question is, I understand the carryover,
Mhm.
but are we projecting what any additional capital outlay money from the state or from,
We don't project
Okay.
any of that until we actually receive
but
it.
we do have some things in the works, I guess.
We
is
do,
what I'm
yes,
saying.
sir. But we will not,
You can't account for it.
we do not recognize it as a funding source or an expense until they actually send us an agreement. Even if it's approved in the House Bill 2, it's not until the bonds get sold and we actually get a summary that we would then recognize it. Yes, sir.
thanks, Mr. Champagne. Ms. Candace.
All right, so we just have 2 small ones left in the back. These are some of our outside agencies that we collect or give some funding to. One is TITA. We are transferring 593, this is on page 334. $593,750 to TITA, which is a 5% decrease. And then the very last one is the library, which is going to be on the next page, 337. And they are projecting to collect about $6.9 million in sales tax and be able to use that for their total budgeted expenditures of 6.9 as well.
Thank you, Ms. Candace. Any questions from any of the council members respectively? Mr. Harding?
Yeah, I just need $35,000 for,
All right, Mr. Hamner? Go ahead, sir.
Candace, I just wanted to give you and the finance department some kudos here. You know, I was looking through the book and I saw that for the last 21 years, the finance department has received a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. That's quite an accomplishment. Yeah, that award goes to an entity that gives, that goes beyond the call of what is required locally for a local budget to be, the local program requirements, and you go beyond what Terrebonne Parish requires, and you meet the standards for the Government Finance Office Association as well.
Yes, sir.
I'm impressed with that. That's quite an accomplishment,
Thank you.
and just, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Mr. Hamner. And one thing from the chair, I'd like to, it's, as far as notating and make sure I'm keeping up with, what we have going, the motions that have been made during these hearings. Mr., specifically, there's two, comments that were made, one by Mr., motion by Mr. Voisin, I'm looking at him, can't call his name, Mr. Voisin, as far as addressing the council staff's pay as well. Just want to make sure that we're looking at that, we did, myself, Mr. Amady and Mr. Harding, we did have a meeting with staff in regards to that, one that they had requested. And I know Mr. Voisin did mention a 5% adjustment, but after the meeting, I think it was confirmed, or we did make I'm sorry, Ms. Chauvin. Thank you, Ms. Chauvin. But after that meeting, it was more so, it would be more convenient if we did a adjustment to those guys versus just a 5% increase. So I would just want to make sure we keep that on the radar, and when we're getting ready to ratify the budget hearings that we've discussed. Also, I did make a comment in regards to, and also got Mr. Babin, he kind of helped me out with that, agreeing with that, but I'm thinking we have overwhelming support when it comes to the community outreach program for Ms. Collins too as well. If we can, just look into that too as well. So outside of those two things, I don't have anything else here from the chair. I don't know if any of you other council members have anything specifically you want to share, but outside of that, I think we're good. So with that being said, thank you, Ms. Candace, for all that you've done, the work for you and your staff, you and your department to get this budget to where it is. And also thanks for administration for everybody having their input in the questions that have been asked thus far. And of course, if you have any further questions with this, we can, I'm sure we can lean on Candace and bother them a little bit more and let them get through this so we can ratify it and move forward to 2025. Now, we still have another item, agenda item here, item number 5. Consider the introduction, wait.
Hold on, Mr.
Wait. Wait. That's not my fault, you guys. Go ahead and turn your light on, ma'am. Man.
I know the next item is consider the introduction of an ordinance, but if we're gonna have Ms. Malden make changes to the items that you had chose, I think those changes need to be made before the ordinance is introduced. So I don't know if there was any discussion about that.
We have always done it where we are introducing this ordinance to hold the public hearing and adoption at that first Wednesday. And it has always been at the Monday committee meetings that we present all of those proposed changes. And that's what gets adopted on the Wednesday night.
Okay.
So that happens on the Monday. So if we think that it should happen this week so that it's included in what's being presented for public hearing and adoption, we would have to vote on those tonight. But it's always been done on the Monday committee meeting before the Wednesday where it's adopted.
Okay.
So
I don't want to say that it was done wrong in the past, but I think when we introduce an ordinance to adopt a budget, and the budget needs to be set and finalized before it's introduced. But I don't want to buck the system.
So we have two options here. I believe that we could, the two that you mentioned, Mr. Pledger, are the two that I had on my notes too. So there was nothing in addition. So I think we could do the motion here to include them.
Do we want to make amendments tonight?
We could do that, and or we can adopt it as is, and at the first January meeting, present these two changes to the council for approval that way. It's up to you guys.
Both good solutions.
Mr. John Amity.
There is a third.
Oh,
The-
yes, your
the legal-
40,000 for the legal to bump it
Right.
up by, it's like $6,000 increase or something. Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Amity.
That was the Southeast Louisiana Legal Services.
Yeah, so going on what Michelle said, I don't know. I don't know that voting on that tonight.
Well, we don't have the specifics.
Right, right, we would have, I mean, it would be almost like doing an add-on. Because it wasn't advertised on the agenda that we'd be doing that. So,
And I know from the chair, only thing I'm just putting it out there, and I apologize for
Yep.
no, that's right.
for getting the, and I have the legal services written right here and didn't even see that, but at least we're aware of that, guys. All right. And with that being said, we can go back now and just get hard numbers of what we're going to be possibly giving, and then from there we can, first of the year,
Yes, sir.
then we can move forward with putting that
Budget
motion out
agenda.
there. If
Do a BA.
if all of you guys agree, I'm seeing some head shit nodding, so
I'm
I'm
good with
assuming
that.
that's probably the easiest way and
Yes.
probably the most efficient way for Ms. Candace not to just
Yes, sir.
mess
I
all
will,
this up.
I'll make a note to make sure that that first January meeting, we introduce these changes. And I will make a note to get with Michelle, and next year we'll have it done how we think is the right, efficient way to do it. But yeah, if we could just introduce it that first January, it won't affect anything. To be able to do that budget amendment.
Absolutely. I got a few lights going on and off. Mr. Babin?
Yeah. The reason I don't think we could vote on it tonight, because first of all, we made a recommendation for accounting to look in to see if we could in fact budget those items. So that means if we approved everything else, we have a balanced budget. If we would approve it tonight, we would not have a balanced budget because she has to tell us where that money is being taken away from to do the things that we asked about. And I'll just use the 35,000 that you and I were speaking of. As she said it that night, and I think the parish president said the same thing, we can do it. That means we have to take it from somewhere else. And I think that's what Ms. Malden is working on right now to see. So I think it would be prudent to move it to the January, because if we voted there tonight, we have to change something else to adjust to that. I mean, that's basic accounting in my opinion.
Thanks, Mr. Babin. Mr. Hamner?
Well, I was going to ask Candace a direct question. Do you know where that 35,000 for the community outreach is going to come from yet?
So I don't, because I was planning on putting that for the next Monday meeting. But we had talked about maybe possibly taking it from some of the co-sponsorship funding that we had in there. And I think there was another number, and probably to make up the difference, it would have to come from general fund. But again, I'd have to look at it to determine if it was going to put us too low of a general fund balance, or if we could take it from somewhere else.
Yeah, because my only concern is that that program, they're waiting in the wings to find out, if they're going to have the funding for those kids and continue it going.
So they usually don't start that program until late
And
January
they don't
or
start
early
it, but they don't-
February.
That they need to know that they got money, and I hate to make them wait another month and a half.
I think we'll be good though, Clark.
You think
I
we'll
really
be
think
good?
we'll be good. I mean,
And
we're
I'll add
all in
something.
agreement. We're gonna.
I know,
But
I know.
Jason, go ahead.
I'll add something. So I've been having conversations with Diane because I'm working on other funding opportunities.
Great.
And so far, we already saved her $3,000 by getting TCU involved and helping her with the snacks.
Good.
So that is a conversation and things we're working on a regular basis to make sure that there's a program no matter what. So
Okay.
I'm hoping there's a possibility for us that need less money for this as we get closer to the end of the year, and I'm still working on this on a regular
So,
basis.
so you making her feel good that her money's gonna come back.
Right, and I'm working on, again, corporate opportunities and some other things. Yes.
That's because I worry about a couple of things, one of those being you live in that neighborhood where one of those where we keep those kids off the street, and I don't want them to come egg your house for taking the money away.
Yeah, I think,
Bring them some ideas.
And I just know what a good program it is, and I'm as long as we're finding her some money, that's all I don't care where it comes from. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hamner. You good? Mr. Harding?
Yeah, and then what we can actually do, we can actually at this point go to our first meeting that we actually have, just actually have these issues addressed at that point. Right now, we haven't made anything no more than some verbal communication. We can specifically say the first committee meeting in January, we're going to actually discuss these things right here and make sure we take care of them as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Mr. Trosclair?
Yeah, thank you. I know we had our discussion before we finished reading the thing, but that's good. Candace, one question. Okay, on particularly this agenda item, it says, it goes down and it says to amend the parish compensation plan for new and adjusted positions. Okay, the new and adjusted positions. What is, I know we did a lot of changes in personnel, going over these deals. The net position at the end of the day, moving all these people, is there going to be any increase or decrease in our employee
In
salaries, total, to the net position of the general fund? By moving all these people and changing some salaries, some people's salaries got changed up, some probably got changed down. I'm not sure. I mean, it doesn't
nobody's
say.
got changed down, and I don't remember.
So
anybody
did we increase our position on employee salaries or decrease?
I think we kept it all the same.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
So basically, it was
At
just
the end of the day, it was a net effect of
balancing-
zero
yeah, balancing
or
act.
couple of $1,000s. Very immaterial. change.
Mr. Champagne, go ahead.
But you allowed yourself, I guess, there's no savings, but you're allowing yourself to move some of the budget to other areas because you cut those positions. You're allowing
Correct. So there are
to
savings.
get to those other funds.
There are savings in specific individual funds, but if the net effect overall parish employees as a whole, it would probably be zero. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Champagne. And one last thing, we have a little bit of due diligence to do on our part as far as the council goes. From the chair, I'll be sort of putting together I guess, several options in regards to our staff. And I'll be sending that out. I'll be working with Mr. Amady and also Mr. Harding. And we can kind of decide amongst us how we're going to move forward. And I want to do this as soon as possible to aid Miss Candace in being able to do her part in including this or doing whatever the magic that she does behind the scenes. Outside of that, I still have to read this ordinance or this this agenda item number 5, and I'm going to read it as it reads. So please understand that. Item number 5, consider the introduction of and to adopt the 2025 operation and maintenance budget and the 5-year capital improvement budget of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government as presented by the parish president and further amend by the Terrebonne Parish Council to amend the parish compensation plan for the new and/or adjusted positions and to address other matters relative thereto and call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Move Mr. Kevin Champagne, second Mr. Danny Babin.
So the one online reads correctly, where we are considering the introduction of an ordinance to adopt.
Not a problem. All right. Seeing no discussions, members, vote your machines.
Second.
All right, let's vote first. Votes 9-0. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Kevin Champon, second by Mr. Clyde Hamner. Seeing no lights, members, vote your machines. Votes 9-0. Good evening.